currently at a different location, in the south of Persia or New Rome. Numerius Aemilius Stavros leads his troops far south and makes his expectations known to the remaining Seleucid noble houses. They are to bend the knee, but these fools do not yield. Sophonikos challenges the Roman general. He should come and get him, even if it is the last thing he does. Sophonikos, with only a junior general and 400 troops, is at Ambrosia. He wants to know. Numerius Aemilius Stavros has come with a legion and stands with half, with over 2,000 men, at the gates of Selkis. Welcome to Total War. Rome, winter 102 BC. Rome is in turmoil. The Marius reform has led to the dissolution of all legions. Many Roman generals have returned from the Seleucid War, far from the east of the Seleucid Empire, bringing their battered legions with them, which now stand idle. The cohorta reformata has had a serious impact on the Roman military. The training and equipment of the old units has been completely discontinued. The Roman phalanx era is over. Many say the first legions were the best, with incredible combat strength and low maintenance costs. The first Roman legion operated around 300 BC. The Roman legions originally deployed in battle as heavily armed phalanx, formed into a front of 400 to 600 men and staggered in depth to 6 men, based on Etruscan and Greek models. Consisting of 2 phalanx armies, each with 2,000 to 2,500 legionnaires. The phalanx army could be divided into 2 combat units in order to quickly and flexibly respond to the enemy's battle formations and tactics. It had proven particularly effective against an overwhelmingly superior enemy, encircling them. The Triarii were the most experienced and best equipped fighters in the army. They stood in the front line and formed the ultimate defensive line. Their main weapon was the long spear, which allowed them to keep their opponents at a distance. If the enemies broke through the first 2 rows of the Roman army, the Triarii were called upon to stop the enemy and stabilize the front line. The princes were the next line of the Roman army. They were experienced fighters who could defeat the enemy in close combat. They wore heavy armor and long swords that were very effective in battle. The princes were fast and agile and were able to quickly react to changes on the battlefield. The hastati were the third line of the Roman army. They were usually young recruits who did not have much experience in combat. However, they were well equipped and wore heavy armor, spears, and swords. The hastati were often used as a vanguard to scout out the enemy and lure them into battle. They were positioned. They wore light armor and spears, but no swords. Their main task was to slow down the enemy and prevent them from moving in battle. The Levites were a group of soldiers known for their speed and agility. They wore light armor and short swords and were able to quickly respond to changes on the battlefield. They were often positioned near the commanders to receive and execute orders quickly. Finally, there were the stone throwers. These soldiers were specialized in the use of throwing weapons, such as stones or throwing axes. They were usually positioned in the rear and were used to fight the enemy from a distance. And let's not forget the cavalry and the general. The cavalry was often reinforced or recruited additional auxiliary troops for the campaign. The legion consisted of 2 arms with 2 spearheads each. The Polybian reform was a significant change in the Roman military organization around 200 BC. The battle formation was changed, and the Senate decided to send more legions into the field. The actual legion was streamlined and still formed as a heavily armed phalanx with a front of 300 to 500 men and a depth of 4 men. Instead of 2 Roman armies, a legion now consisted of a Roman army and a reserve army, often barbarian. The Roman main army consisted of 3 spearheads and could be effectively positioned on the battlefield. As the requirement at this time was more focused on the conquest of territories, the legions did not reach the strength of the ancient legions in the front ranks and needed more support. The focus was more on the cavalry, and barbarian auxiliary troops often brought archers. All of Europe reinforced the Roman troops, and there were countless legions. A typical Polybian legion consisted of 4 main components: triarii, princeps, hastati, and the Lights. The Triarii were the most experienced and best-equipped soldiers in the Legion. They formed the first line of defense and stood directly in front of the enemy. They were equipped with long spears and heavy armor that protected them from enemy attacks. The Princes were also experienced fighters who stood in the second line of defense. They were lighter equipped than the Triarii, but still wore heavy armor and shields and were armed with short swords and spears. The Hastati formed the third line of defense and were usually less experienced than the Triarii and Princes. They were lighter equipped than their colleagues, but still wore armor and shields and were armed with short swords and spears. The Velites formed the fourth and final line of defense. They were lightly armed and unprotected and served as light infantry and skirmishers. They were armed with throwing spears and arrows and moved quickly across the battlefield. The Polybian Legion was known for its flexibility and ability to quickly respond to changes on the battlefield. But the Phalanx era of Rome is now over. If you liked the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you!